This Monday after your Thanksgiving break. I hope all of you had a fantastic one. At this time, as a reminder, please mute yourself unless you need to talk there, but we want to make sure we keep it as quiet as possible for our guest. But with that said, thank you all for joining us once again. Birthdays, first and foremost, we got a couple birthdays coming up today. It's our for the city of Fresno, our fire chief, Carrie Donis's birthday. Tomorrow we have past President Scott Leonard's birthday. On Thursday, we have Brian, our new member, Brian Burton's birthday. And on Friday, it's a bunch of birthdays. It's Jeanette Ishi's, Bruno Bowie's, Scott Rurick's, and Pierre's birthday. So thank you all so much for, happy birthday to them if they're on. If not, if you see them between now and next week, make sure you wish them a happy one there. As I've been doing with a bunch of meetings there, I've been having some Fresno famous Zoom bombs stop by to say hi and maybe give an update what's going on in their world. And I thought today was very appropriate with the guest I have with us, and that is our District 5 County Supervisor, Nathan Magsig. Nathan, welcome, and thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Well, we are talking forest, and its forestry issues have been on the top of all of our minds here locally there. I thought you would be great to bring in today and give us a little update. What's going on as far regards to District 5 and the Creek Fire?
Sure. So the Creek Fire technically is not completely contained. As of this morning, it was 95% contained. It's burned roughly 380,000 acres. For those of you who don't know, it is the largest single fire in California's history. There have been larger fires that have burned, but they're what's referred to as complex fires. And this is where maybe lightning starts multiple fires that eventually merge together into a larger fire. But with the Creek Fire, it started just very near Big Creek, just outside of Camp Sierra, and in one day grew 50,000 acres, which is unprecedented, unheard of. It created its own weather. There were fire tornadoes up around Huntington Lake that just decimated those areas where those fire tornadoes came through. And about 850 structures were lost in that fire. And even though there was a lot of destruction of forest and we lost those 850 structures, the real story is in the structures that were saved. CAL FIRE, working with U.S. Forest Service and many other agencies that were responsible for fighting that fire, really deserve a tremendous amount of credit. They worked very hard to make sure that the community of Shaver Lake, by and large, was saved. There were some structures around Shaver that were lost, unfortunately, but the fire was coming right towards Shaver Lake, and CAL FIRE had to make some real gutsy decisions. They started a backfire and did some other things to reroute and create weather and reroute the fire as it was coming to Shaver Lake. So we don't have enough time for me to really get into that. Where we stand today, phase 1 environmental work has been completed on the Fresno County side of all those structures that have been lost. What that phase 1 work entails is household hazardous waste cleanup. Before we come in and do the phase 2 work, which is the debris removal, we want to make sure that we get rid of heavy metals and other hazardous materials that are still left behind after structures are lost. So all that's completed. The phase 2 work should begin this week. It's scheduled to begin this week. I know that a contractor has been selected by the state, and right now there's a 7-day process where that selection can be disputed. But I want to give a lot of credit to President Trump. President Trump intervened about a month and a half ago to make sure that Fresno County was recognized by FEMA as a disaster area. And also President Trump wanted to make sure that individuals had access to what's called individual assistance, and that Fresno County had access to public assistance through FEMA. You may not be aware, but there was a letter issued by FEMA to us denying the federal disaster assistance. But when our congressional delegation found out about that, they reached directly out to the president. Congressman McCarthy, as well as Congressman McClintock, spoke to the president directly about it. And the president that day reversed FEMA and made sure that Fresno County received the assistance that we're getting right now. So I can't say enough and give enough thanks to President Trump for getting involved in helping us with that. The cost of the fire really is unknown. Just to fight the fire, the expense to fight the fire will be north of $100 million. Looking at what it costs to clean up just an individual lot, it depends on how large the lot was, how many, if they had cars on the property, if there were batteries or other contaminants. And sometimes it can cost anywhere between $100,000 to $200,000 just to clean up one lot. So it's very expensive. We're still working with the U.S. Forest Service to try to get some participation with them in the cleanup efforts around Huntington Lake. You may not be aware, but a lot of the structures that were lost around Huntington Lake were on what's called a land lease. So while the people owned the homes that they were in, they were leasing the land from the U.S. Forest Service. And as FEMA gave their declaration and Cal OES has been involved in the cleanup work, there is an agreement has not been reached between the U.S. Forest Service and Cal OES to do the phase 2 debris removal work up around Huntington Lake. And so right now it's looking like some of those property owners may be faced with, or leaseholders may be faced with the prospect of having to clean up some of those lots. The biggest challenge that the U.S. Forest Service is having is Cal OES wants the Forest Service to pay for the work that they're going to do. And so you've got different competing state and federal agencies trying to figure out how are we going to pay for this. And there's a bit of gridlock there, but my office, as well as the County of Fresno, is trying to be a facilitator because we don't want any families to be left behind as we're dealing with this cleanup effort. But we're moving forward very quickly. There's an expectation that the phase 2 work, which again is the debris removal work on the private lands, will be completed by May the 1st of 2021, which is very quick work. If you look at other fires that have taken place up and down the state, sometimes it can be a year or two before you get to the point where Fresno County is hoping to be in a matter of just months. We want people to get back into their homes. We've got many different nonprofits as well as county departments working with all the affected families that were displaced because of the creek fire. So I'll stop. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have of me. And I know our time is short, but I wanted to give you an opportunity to ask some questions too.
No, I appreciate that, Nathan. And for those of you who don't follow him, he's been doing some incredible updates on Facebook and making sure just the public knows what's going on. A lot of folks that were affected are here on this call right now just because of they had second homes either at Huntington or Shaver Lake, and Nathan's updates during that time were very appreciated there. So thank you so much, Nathan, for joining us here today. I think we'll have you back probably early next year to give a more comprehensive update. It's hard to believe that we're not even 3 months into knowing what the creek fire was, and yet so much has happened in that short amount of time. And so appreciate all you've done to help keep us all updated.
Absolutely. You're welcome. Thank you.
Thanks, Nathan. Anna, I know we have a awesome little poll today. I don't know if we've launched that yet. Let me check here, or you're going to launch it very quickly. Which holiday cookie is your favorite? So if you have some time there, I was laughing because I don't have a clue what a Russian tea cake is. So I don't know if that's dating me or aging me or what it is, but have no clue what that is. But if some of you like that, fantastic. All I can tell you is that option number 7 is not allowed. You're not allowed to put number 7, because if you do, you just don't belong in this club, because you have to like some kind of cookie, right? But with that said, take advantage of that, fill that out, and then we'll talk about that as we finish up the speaker today. Moving on, Wilma, you're going to give us an update on, we're going to be doing a project with Casa Youth.
Yes, thank you, Ryan. So this year's project is the warming kits for Casa Youth. This is for our foster kids, generally 13 to 21-year-olds, because they are the ones who are walking around to school. If the school is open, they would walk to school, they would walk to the store, they just walk everywhere. And they're not big into jackets or coats. They like their hoodies. So $30 will provide one warm kit, which includes a sweatshirt because of a great partnership with the T-shirt outlet, socks, hat, and gift cards. And you're thinking, why gift cards? Because these kids want to feel like just typical teenagers, and they want to go into McDonald's and have fast food, and a lot of times they just don't have the funds to do that. So the Rotary Project in partnership for CASA is one for sweatshirts, socks, hats, and the gift cards. And if there's any extra money, we'd like to get them tennis shoes, because it ties in with, I had mentioned, they walk everywhere. And we want to replace those shoes before the soles wear out and have holes in the shoes. So that's our project for 2020.
Well, fantastic. Thank you, Wilma. And obviously, Anna does a great job, makes it as easy as possible for us. So just shoot her an email, shoot her a text, just let her know, and she can add it to your bill there. But extraordinarily easy way to participate for this very awesome project there. So Wilma, thank you so much. And you'll keep us updated on how this is going.
I sure will. Thank you.
Thank you. And another thing that we're involved with, and I've been very excited about the response. Do we have John Richards on?
I'm here.
Fantastic.
I'm here, President Ryan.
Fantastic. John, would you like to give an update where we are as far as bell ringing? And I am very happy to say that we have some great response, but there's still a few slots open if folks want to volunteer.
Yes, thanks to everyone. We have, of course, this Wednesday and Thursday at JCPenney East at Fashion Fair. As of right now, we have 2 spots open. So if you're interested, shoot me an email or call me. And if you'd like to come anyway and buddy up with another Rotarian that's already there, socially distant, of course, I think that would be great. So thanks to everybody.
Thank you. Yeah, appreciate it, John. And thank you for pulling this together. I mean, like so many things was, we didn't know where this was going to go, was a concern that a lot of folks maybe just didn't want to be out at this point, but very, very excited with the response. Thank you to the Rotarians that have stepped up to do that. So appreciative. And if you want to take advantage of one of those 2 spots, get a hold of John or Anna, and we'll make sure we get you plugged in. And then another fun thing that we have coming up and very quickly on this Wednesday is Kara on the line. She's going to give us an update in regards to our virtual wine tasting. Oh, maybe we don't have Kara on. Okay, no problem. Anna pulled it up anyways. So the virtual wine tasting is taking place this Wednesday. So you don't have to go anywhere. You're doing this from your own home. But the cool part about this is you're actually, you actually get to enjoy the Fresno State wines as part of this bundle that we've come up with there. So the deadline is tonight at midnight. So if you want to sign up for it, you don't have to pick it up today. You can pick it up tomorrow or Wednesday before the event from the farm market. But it's $39. You get 3 bottles of wine. It's going to be a wine tasting with the winemaker, who's going to be telling you all the what went into it and a little bit about the characteristics of it and stuff. And so from a unique perspective and a fun perspective, we haven't done this before, and I think this is going to be an awesome event. So please take advantage of it. We want it to be successful, and a big shout out to Kara for helping to pull that together. So thank you all. And for those of you who have already registered, and if you want to register, there is still time. Just make sure you let us know today. And if you don't have time to do it online, just shoot us an email. We'll make sure we get you down there. With that said, moving on now to our speaker for the day, I'm going to hand it over to Mr. Darren Rose, who is going to introduce her.
Good afternoon, fellow Rotarians. It's my pleasure to introduce Brittany Dyer, who is the California State Director of American Forests. Formerly, she served as the Chief of Staff on the Madera County Board of Supervisors in its eastern part of Madera County, where she worked on forest health issues in the Southern Sierra. She's also served as the state of California's Forest Management Task Force and acted as the co-chair of the Tree Mortality Working Group, and will continue working on this statewide role at American Forests. She holds a BS in Communications and Public Relations, and recently received her Master of Natural Resources from the Forest and Ecosystems Society program at Oregon State University. Her husband, Gilbert, has worked with the U.S. Forest Service for over 15 years. Brittany, welcome, and looking forward to your presentation.
Thank you so much, Darren. Can you hear me okay? Great. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. Just a little bit of a shout out to the group here. Darren and I first connected, it would have been likely about March, right? So we were connected. I was going to come meet you guys in person, and we've been trying ever since to make it happen. Little did we know that the conversation in around forest and fire was going to become even more relevant directly here in Fresno County. So thank you so much for having me here today. And I am going to share my screen. And I'm going to ask that you guys give me a thumbs up if you can see. Great. Okay. And if my connection starts to get a little wonky, let me know and I can turn my camera off as well. So like Darren mentioned, my name is Brittany Dyer, or Britta, and I serve as the California State Director at American Forest. American Forest is a national nonprofit organization. We're based in Washington, D.C., and we're actually the oldest conservation organization in the country at just over 145 years old. And so what we do is we work across the country to restore forest health, and it looks different everywhere we go, right? Whether that's Miami, Idaho, California. But today I'm going to talk to you specifically about California, specifically about the Sierra Nevada, and really hit home on some of the things that have been happening here in Ground Zero, right? Fresno, Tulare, Madera counties. And I'll just note that I am located in the exact center of California. So for those of you who picked that up, that's North Fork, California, right outside of Bass Lake. And this is the second office that American Forest has ever had. So we have our DC office and our North Fork office. So I was evacuated during the Creek Fire for about 22 days, just on the other side of the river. And like so many of you know people who've lost their home during that situation, including 2 or 3 on my own street. So it hits home in a number of different ways, but I'm excited that we're all talking about it today. So with that, I'm going to take just a couple of minutes to talk about some of the current issues, potential solutions, and then our work at American Forest. But before I do, I just want to take a moment to ground down into these California landscapes, right? These are the beautiful and pristine places that we all enjoy and that we want to protect. So the current issues. Let's say things have gotten rough in the last 5 or 10 years, right? There's been a lot of shifts, a lot of changes. I can drop a lot of statistics here, but honestly, sometimes photos really tell the true story, right? You got the Thomas Fire here above, followed by the recent Creek Fire here below. And if you haven't seen this yet, this cloud that was right over North Fork, right over Shaver, it's the largest of its kind in North America to date. NASA actually deemed that, and it had over 17 lightning strikes as well as fire tornadoes, as the supervisor was notifying earlier. So my point here is that you don't get smoke plumes that stretch 50,000 feet under normal conditions, right? The area in which the fire started was the tree mortality zone. And we've never really truly been able to see the fire behavior go off in those areas. And now with the Creek Fire we have, and just to what Supervisor Magstead was saying, that's 50,000 acres. In one day, it went 50,000 acres. Just want to show this picture for a moment. This was taken on September 5th from my cell phone. I was evacuating for the second time in 24 hours, and I'm actually inside that plume at this time. I don't know it at the time, but I can hear the thunder that's occurring. And if you look at the timestamp here, my car clock says 9:24 in the morning. Okay, and that's all ash on the window there. So forest health. All of our forests just look like this, right? This is what we want them to look like, just beautiful, pristine. We can all go out and enjoy them together. But that's not reality, right? It's not the reality, especially for us right here in the Southern Sierra. This picture was taken back in February of 2016. I'm actually in a helicopter, a PG&E helicopter here. And as far as the eye can see, you guys are all very familiar with this. Dead red trees, trees that have died for what reason, right? You may have heard drought-induced, you may have heard the beetles, the bark beetles, and we're going to go over all of those things. They did contribute to it greatly, but we really have to unpack why we got here and how in order to think about how we're actually going to heal this forest as well. So just so you know, there's over 162 million trees that died through that tree mortality event, primarily in 10 counties within California, and Fresno coming in at tying close, 1 or 2. It's Tulare, Fresno, Madera that suffered the most. So, pest. Yes, the bark beetles had something to do with it. The bark beetles are a native pest that typically kill off about 3% of the tree species a year. And actually that's a key ecosystem function because they kill off the weaker trees, leaving the other stronger trees to remain, right? It's better for the tree genetics. But during this event, we saw a die-off of over 96%. And typically, the ponderosa pine in this example could actually soak up extra water through its roots and then pitch out the beetle, right? Or drown the beetle so that they couldn't be as successful. However, they couldn't drink more water, right? No, we were in the middle of a drought. And while California does have a Mediterranean climate and we're used to some droughts, this was truly a historic drought. And the trees were not able to soak up more water to defend themselves in a meaningful way. So you have those two things, right? The pests, the drought, and really these things combined created the perfect storms scenario. These are photos from the creek fire. This is on the Bass Lake Ranger District side, as far as the eye can see, right? But I want to go back real quick to this photo, right? I said 162 million dead trees. You guys, that's too many trees. So we can't talk about the pests. We can't talk about the drought without also talking about Homo sapien decision-making, the decisions that we made that led to this perfect storm condition. There were too many trees per acre, way too many trees, right? And so for the past several decades that we've decided to suppress fire, it is part of the problem. So many times you don't hear that piece, and then it allows us to go past. Well, if there wasn't a drought, it would have been fine. Or wasn't this, freak event with these pests? And it's not the case, because no matter what, you see all these trees, even the hazard trees in the creek fire photo here, right? There's too many. There's way too many per acre. Let's say there had been enough water. There's so much competition as they all would have to drink up water. They're all growing tall and thin, so they're weak. There's not much diversity. Most of them are the same age, the same species. They're all trying to just see who can win to get to the top of that canopy to get the most sun. If there even had been enough water, the likelihood that there would have been able to be success and they would have been able to defend themselves is very rare. I guess what I'm saying here, folks, is that California is breaking records, right? Breaking records that we don't really want to be breaking. I don't have to tell you, right? We're all living it right now. I did want to point out, so this is the latest from CAL FIRE, the top 20 largest wildfires in California history, right? And you see Creek Fire is there at number 4. And to the supervisor's point, it is the largest single wildfire to date. But look, these six alone have already burnt up about 3% of the state of California, right? About 3%. That would be the size of Delaware and Rhode Island combined. And that doesn't even start to talk about other costs associated, right? I want to break down a couple of the numbers in and around suppression costs with CAL FIRE. Okay, so since 2001, suppression costs have increased by nearly 70%. Since 1980, suppression costs have increased by nearly 97%. And suppression costs for the 2020-2021 fire season were estimated at $372 million. And that number was last updated in late September, okay? When we talk about cost, it can look very different. So here's another way of communicating the exact same thing, right? We're at nearly 4.5 million acres. This is from the Air Board. I sit on the Community Advisory Committee for the Air Board. And look, once again, we see these impacts. The visuals are the same, no matter what model we put them in. They're all the same. So where you see that spike here for the PM 2.5, right in the middle, right during the Creek Fire, I know that all of us in Fresno and Madera truly suffered. It gave the word bad air quality a whole new definition. And you guys, this doesn't even begin to capture our future costs, right? We're gonna have flooding, we're gonna have erosion. This is gonna mess up water quality for farmers, etc. It's all connected. So now that you have a bit of that doom and gloom situation, let me just highlight a couple solutions, okay? What's great is that we actually know, we know a lot, we know and most parties agree on what we need to do. Before I dive into solutions, I like to show this visual, right? You see these black and white photos on the right from 1941 to 2005. And what you're seeing is in 1941, when we had an open forest, and then after decades of fire suppression, now you're looking at the bottom right corner is how thick the forest is. Unhealthy. So what do we do about it? Well, we use 3 different climate smart forest management tools. And this is climate smart fire, climate smart thinning, and climate smart reforestation. I just want to highlight that all of these tools, if you see on the bottom, they're all really rooted in this idea in and around partnership. None of these things can be done alone. We've learned every time you try to do it alone or silo, what happens? You have lawsuits, et cetera. So partnership, partnership, partnership with all of these tools. And it's not one or the other, it is all of them. So this visual just demonstrates, so in the top, number one is where the forest conditions are today. So then when fire hits them, look at number three. It's a creek fire, right? Whereas in the past, we had forest conditions that look like number two. And then when fire hit the ground, which is natural, about every 5 to 15 years throughout the Sierra, we had a natural fire regime, then you'd actually have forest left. And it would actually switch and change up the composition of the forest in a meaningful way. So what do I mean by climate smart fire? We need to be able to increase prescribed fire, right? Prescribed fire, good fire, tribal burning. We have to be able to use creative fire patterns, frequencies, and intensities to modify this fire behavior. And we need to be more selective and target our suppression efforts. You guys, this is just a quick picture here. In the top left, you see smoke, and that's a good fire, right? It's very targeted. It's actually going in, cleaning up the forest debris. And then the larger picture here is the smoke that's created through bad fire, right? Or catastrophic wildfire. And what that does to public health is, again, I don't need to tell you guys, right? We were all experiencing it. Okay, climate smart thinning. What do I mean by that? Strategically targeted thinning, right? We have to be selective. We have to harvest in a way that retains species. We have to be able to find economically viable solutions for biomass, for wood products. Again, take a look at this fuel-driven system. We live in a fuel-driven system. The top one is where good fire hits the landscape in a meaningful way with a forest that's already healthy, right? So that top left photo. Bottom left photo, forest conditions of today. Too many forests. So fire comes in, shoots up, ladder fuels go across the top, firefighter safety is a challenge, and you lose the entire forest. So finally, we have climate smart reforestation. And this is where we actually need to look at the tree species selection, resilient genetics, and really just different planting techniques, right? We can plant in a way that not if, but when fire comes back through that system, it's able to travel along in different clumps in different areas in a meaningful way that provides nutrients to the soil, the native grasses for the wildfire, et cetera, or for the wildlife, et cetera. So our work. At American Forest, this is really our niche here, okay? In fact, let me pause and just say that at American Forest, we have two main programs. We have community relief, where we work on urban forestry and tree equity. And then we have American relief, and these are our landscape level projects. Today, in my conversations with you, I'm primarily talking about all of our landscape level work or our American relief program. That said, we really are this white area here, right? This niche of being able to bring forestry, science, and policy all together. So what does that look like on the ground? This is what it looks like. And this is what we have to do in California and the greater West, right? We have to restore resiliency. And this looks different on every forest and every ecosystem. But when it comes down to it, you know, I always like to say that not all trees are good and not all fire is bad. And if we can't roll up our sleeves and have difficult discussions around what that may look like, then we're failing, right? We had unintended consequences associated with what society thought was good. Oh, we're going to suppress fire because fire is bad. And then today we're still cleaning up those unintended consequences. You guys, it's both, right? In fact, I'm always saying that we have to cut trees, we have to plant trees, we have to start fire, and we have to stop fire. Once again, this is not one or the other. This is all things for this living system. If we're not doing all of them, then there will be unintended consequences. So I just want to highlight quickly, and I think I'm running out of time, so I'll just highlight quickly a couple of our projects that we're working on. This is on the King Fire on El Dorado National Forest. At the time, King Fire, which was in, we've been helping since 2017, but it was a mega fire just at 100,000 acres. And at the time it was a big fire, right? It was a big fire. It was right in and around when RIM occurred. And we've been able to get the Forest Service capacity, right? So been able to get a Sierra Corps member paired up with them in the field to actually think about how we might go about restoring this fire in a meaningful way. Super easy to just say, hey, let's get seedlings back in the ground. And then what? Then tomorrow or next generation, the one after, we have too many trees? We don't want to do that. But in other areas where high intensity has come through, meaning, right, the fire had burned so hot, there may be no seed source. So something has to be introduced. And as you all know, the Forest Service doesn't necessarily have the capacity to spend as much time or money on these items, right? Their mission is to be, they're given, you know, this many acres with this much money and this many people. So partnership, partnership, partnership. We're also working in the campfire area. This is a really unique situation because we're truly seeing that planting ponderosa pine back on that landscape isn't going to work. We're seeing oaks regenerate in a meaningful way. And so instead of trying to fight that, right, being able to use climate smart tools to identify how we can actually help regeneration. And when you have complex fires like the campfire, you have multiple owners. So you have folks that are making decisions for tomorrow, but it might be the Forest Service, BLM, private landowners, right, utility companies. And so we're actually convening all those folks and actually having dialogue, having intense dialogue sometimes on what this landscape is going to look like and what we can do across boundaries in a meaningful way to create, you know, the quilt that we like across the landscape. And then San Bernardino, I just highlight this one real quick because we've been down there working with the Resource Conservation District for over 15 years. This was for a fire that happened back in 2003. And I like this one because we've been there 15 years, you can now see what it looks like. Okay, so going back, see that hillside, and then this is it today. So finally, I just highlight our work on the Sierra National Forest. Before the Creek Fire, we were working on the first 4 different bullet points on the Sierra National Forest. It's going to be really interesting to see how our role changes now in the next year because Creek Fire will likely become one of our biggest projects. So as you know, and the Creek Fire is going to go into this. Nathan hit all this beautifully. Started September 4th, largest single wildfire coming in at 380,000 acres, 853 structures destroyed. But what I really want to note here is that the bear teams, or we got folks out on the ground who are still determining exactly how it burnt and where, right? So there's going to be areas where there is some good fire and maybe reforestation does not need to take place. But in other areas, it's a moonscape. And it's going to need help, right? The seed source is gone. It's not, there's no pine cones. They're not in the soil. It's all fried up, in which case we have to reintroduce seedlings in a meaningful way. So we really have to understand the needs. Again, going back to that social science piece, you know, what decision making, what unintended consequences may come up, making sure that we're doing things, we're pausing for just a moment in order to get trees in the ground in a meaningful way. The challenge with that can be, you don't want to wait too long because then you have all the competing brush come up. And when that happens, it actually triples the price of being able to do anything in reforestation, right? Because then you have to actually do fuel reduction before you're able to get in there. We are working, and I just noted here, we are working with Intermountain Nursery for those of you who drive through the greater Auberry-Prather area, trying to help both private landowners and the utilities. So just wrapping up my last few slides here, I just wanted to note that at American Forest, we do a number of policy efforts, right? And one of the most notable, at least most recently, is the fire fix. So the fire fix, the way that the Forest Service is able to even pay for the fires that happen is all wonky. So back in 2018, we were able to lobby back in DC in order to look at how this works, but it passed, but it didn't actually take effect until October 1st of this year. So the Forest Service now has a brand new system of how this is going to work. And honestly, everyone's getting to know all the perks, right? All the pros and cons that come with that. Because 2 years ago, we didn't have the same size fires that we have today. Another effort that we're working on is shared stewardship. So the Forest Service, and in fact, the DC Office of Forest Service has contracted with the DC Office of American Forest, and we're helping roll out the shared stewardship concept across the greater West, really. But this is really the idea that they can't do it alone, you guys, right? It's partnership, partnership, partnership. Being able to work cross boundaries onto different lands to be able to actually increase the pace and scale. We say that a lot. We want to increase the pace and scale of, across the California forest. But how do you do that when there are these invisible lines that once you get there, the masticator has to stop, the planting has to stop. And so being able to work CAL FIRE, the Forest Service, RCDs, whatever it is, to make sure that the entire landscape is worked on versus little pieces like Swiss cheese, right? They'll end up having a lot of little holes. And then I just also highlight our role on the California Forest Management Task Force. We work with a number of local governments to be able to prioritize those issues. I want to commend the supervisor's leadership really on this task force as well since 2015. And I guess the point is that whatever we're managing for, right? If it's wildlife, if it's recreation, if it's workforce, we're committed. We're committed at American Forest. Yes, at a DC level, yes, at a state level, but honestly, our place-based partnerships, that's where the rubber meets the road, right there. So with that, here are just a few of our California funders and partners, and I would be happy to take any questions that you may have.
Fabulous. Thank you, Brittany. That was awesome. This is, as you probably could assume, been a very hot topic. I've gotten this request many times to hear a presentation on what's going on in the forest. And so let me start with, I'll start with my own question because this is an issue I have a great passion for. I spend most weekends up in Shaver. Actually have a place that overlooks, you mentioned Blue Canyon. I overlook Blue Canyon and have seen the death that has taken place in that over the course of the last 5 years. And it's just been absolutely awful. But one of the frustrations, I think, for a lot of folks, probably most of the folks on the call here, is everything you just said is completely makes sense, rational, like we should be doing. But there is a segment of society, particularly the environmental community, that has fought a lot of this for a long time. Is their attitudes changing towards this? And are you able to bring them to the table now to have some of these conversations that need to take place?
You know, I don't want to be an optimistic, right? I don't want to say the glass is half full, but I will say I've been working in the Sierras for over 10 years now. And my master's work is in social science. And it's about forest ecosystems and society, right? Our biggest issues in and around forestry isn't that we don't know what to do, right? We even have money to do it. It's being able to all come together. And this is where our models around designing conversations, critical conversations, difficult dialogues, all that jazz. It's where it's important. And you might have seen in the PowerPoint a couple of times I referenced that we are fiercely bipartisan. We'll work with anybody because guess what? It's all connected. But that doesn't mean that there's not challenges, right? There are definitely challenges, but I'm more hopeful today than I've been in the last decade, for sure. I think that, first of all, change usually happens, unfortunately, when it really impacts everybody, when there's suffering. Homo sapiens change their behavior when it actually impacts them. There is not a Californian at this point in time that it hasn't been evacuated, lost a home, knows somebody who has, or been impacted greatly by the air quality, right? So the understanding of it is shifting, is changing. I'll also say that a lot of the statistics are showing us that while, especially 20 years ago, especially in and around when the owl was listed as endangered, we really saw that divide a lot stronger than we do now. Right now, we're actually, in fact, right, we could say that the social pendulum went too far one way or too far the other way. And it's usually events such as the tree mortality. Unfortunately, they're big mistakes. When a big mistake is made and we now realize that decision-making had to do with it, it usually is an opportunity point for those folks to come together. So now the statistics are showing us that while we know that there's groups to the left, to the right, but there's actually much more that is agreed upon and that there are less lawsuits at play. So it's hopeful, but it's also really important. And I try to say this whenever it's relevant, honestly, it's really important to not sugarcoat it, right? Like once you can say, we're not gonna save everything. That's it. We're not going to save everything. Then that gives us a starting point to be able to work from. If you still think we're going to save everything, then you may want to save a specific species or a specific animal, but we're not going to save it all. We need to actually heal the system so that whatever winners and losers are going to come out of a system will happen naturally.
No, fantastic. I mean, I appreciate that response because being where we have been and where hopefully we're going in the future, I am optimistic as well. It's just it's a tempered optimism because we've seen a few fires up north that have been monumental, very big, and it doesn't seem like we've seen that shift take place. But hopefully now it's taken place. And that's one thing when looking at your presentation, I think it's worth mentioning to everybody is that at least in my lifetime, I've not seen what a healthy forest is. I mean, because what we've come to think of as the forest. I've heard statistics that our Sierra National Forest, depending on where you're talking about, has 4 to 7 times the number of board feet of lumber that it should compared to a healthy forest. I've been told that, a healthy forest, you should be able to see through. Very few places of, the Sierra National Forest can you actually see through. And you talked about, when the settlers came over here, when obviously the Native Americans were still managing our forest per se. I mean, they brought their horses, they brought their wagons through the forest. And of course, very few places exist today where you could actually make that happen because of the overgrowth that's taken place. So hopefully we've learned from some of those lessons.
Yep, those are the perceptions, Ryan, that we have to change, right? Because you have people that, go up to Shaver for the weekend, let's say 10 years ago, they go up and they go, wow, it's so beautiful. And when you talk about what we're calling climate smart thinning now, right? Climate smart thinning. And then they go, well, oh, don't cut anything. Don't cut anything because I like it the way it is. This is beautiful. This is healthy. They don't know any different. And that's why constant education again and again, especially from a bipartisan angle, is the only thing we got right now.
No, well, appreciate it. Thank you so much, Brittany, for the presentation today. Absolutely awesome. And I'm sure we can find you on the web if we have questions for you to follow up. And so please do that. You're getting a virtual hand or virtual clap. I know you can't hear it, but we're very appreciative of this because this is something we've talked about for a while there. So thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. I look forward to one day meeting you guys in person.
Fantastic.
Well, Wilma, I would love to learn more about that CASA fundraiser stuff. Thanks.
Wonderful. I'll reach out to you. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. Hope you guys, everybody enjoyed that. As far as today's poll question, I don't have it on my screen. So Anna, I'll have you talk about that in just a second, but I will, oh, there I go. Perfect. There's the results. So thank goodness we don't have a number 7. I am not a cookie lover. Everybody likes cookies of some kind. I am part of the number 6 group, the chocolate chip. I do like chocolate chip a lot. But it looks like, close second would be decorated sugar cookies. So hopefully somebody this holiday season will educate me on the Russian tea cakes. I'm sure I've had one at some point, just didn't know that was the name of it. So like everything, who knows all the names of the C's when you open that C's box? I mean, nobody knows all the names of all those different candies. So Mr. Dick Harrington, we have one recognition today.
Actually, we have 2, President Ryan, but we're going to start with Davina Witcher. Are you on? If you're not, could you unmute your screen? Are you there?
Hi, Dick. Yes, I am here.
Well, why don't you tell us about the new facility you have opened up recently down in Mendota for a new health clinic and neighborhood resource center?
Oh, thank you, Dick. And great to see everyone here today. Anna, did you have some slides we could pop up? For those of you who haven't or aren't aware of the Amour Wellness Center, this is a public, private, and nonprofit collaboration that was started in 2015. And it's specifically designed to address the needs in our rural communities in a collaborative way. Sorry, I'm letting Anna pull that up here. And what we know from studies completed by both First 5 and Kaiser Permanente is that our rural communities here in Fresno County lack the resources to thrive that we take for granted in our metropolitan areas. And so the Amour Wellness Center is designed to meet these needs in a new collaborative way. So while Amore is the one that went into debt and constructed this project, it's all about the collaborative effort going into this rural community. The project is comprised of 2 10,000 square foot buildings, as well as green space. Here you see the health center. We have medical exam rooms and dental exam rooms is on the medical side of this building, which is 5,000 square feet. And then the other 5,000 square feet is dedicated to 2 mental health services. Let me see if I can get that to, there we go. So Turning Point, which is contracted with Fresno County Behavioral Health for all of your substance abuse and mental health services for adults, is co-located with the All for Youth programs, funded also by Fresno County Behavioral Health and implemented by Fresno County Superintendent of Schools, to specifically target our young immigrant children prior to getting to school age, so that they can be fully prepared to enter the classroom, and then supporting both them and their parents as they go through their educational journey. The second building that is a part of this project is our Neighborhood Resource Center. And while it is co-located on the site, the construction and services out of this building are significantly different than the other. It's designed to house 11 nonprofits, as well as the charter school Crescent View West. And we're very happy that even with COVID, that we have been able to move in the charter school, Central La Familia, Girl Scouts of Central California, and recently EOC has committed to its space as well. So the roll is a little bit slower than we had hoped for, but it is happening as quickly as possible. Additionally, in this building, one of the things that makes it so attractive to agencies is not only do they have access to their designated offices, but there is 5,000 square feet of shared community space that every one of them can book time into. And so there's large meeting rooms, conference rooms, classrooms that are connected. And if I have my wish, one of these days we'll have Purdue University classes going on in Mendota. But there's a lot of resources available out here. And then last but not least, let me just go back to that conference room. Hold on, Anna, can we go back up to slide number 8? There you go. These conference rooms and meeting rooms are open to the public and any agency that wants to have a meeting out on the west side of Fresno County. So if you happen to be out there and need a meeting space, please contact me. Amore Wellness Center has its own website, and you can directly book your room on that website. And then additionally for the community, of course, play is essential. And we have a robust green space area with developmental playground, as well as not shown in this is a basketball court and community garden space. So we're very proud of this project. It has taken a heavy lift, and it is definitely due to both the funding sources from federal new market tax credits to Fresno First Bank to private donations that have made this possible. And then the implementation of the work directly goes and is contributed to the partners who have committed their resources to being in rural West Fresno County and providing the services that this community needs in order to thrive. So to play a little bit off of Britta's point as well is together we grow, together we accomplish this, and we're very proud of all of the support that we've received to date, and we're looking forward to the continued work, because truly the work is just getting started. So thank you. If anyone has any questions?
Vina, that is just a tremendous project, a really, really great resource for Mendota and all that surrounding area. You and your organization are to be congratulated on a job well done.
Thank you. Thank you.
And in as much as you have done such a terrific job, we would like you to consider contributing to the Rotary Club of Fresno charities. So if you could tell Ryan how many times you'd like to ring the bell, we'll go from there.
Ryan, I would like to ring the bell 3 times. I'd seen on the agenda I was moved down too far under ring the bell, but I came prepared. Ring the bell 3 times. First of all, to the Amour staff who have worked on this tirelessly for the last 5 years. Second of all, to our funders and partners who have also committed their resources to our rural communities to this new opportunity and unique way of actually addressing the problems that we all know exist there. And third, I would like to say thank you to all of you and acknowledge the support of Rotary. So thank you. 3 bell rings, please.
Thank you very much, Davina. Wilma Hashimoto, are you online?
I am online,
Okay,
and
I understand you have a virtual auction going on. Could you tell us about that?
absolutely. We did the holiday shopping for you. So we have a virtual holiday auction that with more than 130 gifts that you may bid on. The auction is now open and it closes at 1 o'clock on December 9th. So if you would like, I heard someone say, staying at home and sipping some wine. We have lots of wine baskets from Crew Winery and other wineries. We also have from the Orlos, they donated a private plane ride to of your choice to Paso Robles, to Carmel or San Luis Obispo. Of course, this is all taking place after COVID. In addition, we also have beauty products and the Nintendo Switch. That is the coveted toy for 2020. So if you are shopping for children or grandchildren, or actually there's a lot of gamers who are adults, we have 2 of them. We also have a gourmet dinner prepared by two executive chefs at your home, and lots of Disney products. So it's very easy. All of us have phones, so you would text CASA BIDS, CASABIDS, so CASA BIDS to 76278. And once again, we did the holiday shopping for you. If after December 9th, you're the winning bid, you could either come down to our office or we will deliver it to you, touchless, leave it on the porch or dropping it in the mail slot, whatever works for you. So do go on to our to text and you'll get all the updates.
Wilma, it certainly sounds like you got some terrific things for people to consider to add to their shopping list. So that's a great project you have going on, and we wish you every success in that project. Again, as we did with Davina, we'd appreciate any contribution you'd like to make to the Rotary Club of Fresno community projects. If you'd let Ryan know how many times you'd like to ring a bell, that would be great.
Oh yes, let's ring that 2 times.
Terrific. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and appreciate what all you guys are doing for the community. With that said, next week we have a special guest. We're talking about timely subjects. Today was forest. Next week is COVID. David, would you like to tell us about our speaker next week?
Thanks, President Ryan. Hello, fellow Rotarians. We're going to have Dr. Alfred Baez come speak to us, or virtually speak to us next week. Dr. Baez is an interventional cardiologist with the Heart Group here in Fresno. He's actually a local person who grew up and has come back to serve our community. And so he's going to give us an update of what he's seen, the effects on the cardiovascular system, which is the lungs and other parts of the body. And so, and hopefully maybe he can give us an update on the vaccine as we get closer and closer. So I think it's something that's very timely. All would like to get an update on.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Looking forward to it. Should be a great program. And so with that said, no further business today. Thank you all for joining us today. Appreciate it. Meeting adjourned. And Scott Barton, can you unmute yourself?
I am unmuted.
I just got the good news, at least that you have at least one of the birds back.
You know, I just got that text myself. So you